Hello and welcome in today's video. Today we're going to color in gouache paint. So this is my desk. It's basically kitchen top table, and yeah, I like working from here because I have lots of space to spread. So I have my brushes, water, my gouache paint ready, and all my tools. I have lots of spaces for palette and of course my drink. I use this softbox which imitates the daylight, and it's so much better than just working with normal lamp. And this is my kitchen, the rest of it. What's happening around the corner? Let's have a look. Oh, another YouTuber. This is Skedaddle Gaming, my son Miles. Hi Miles. And this is my image I'm going to paint. Lightly sketching, starting just mapping out the main areas. The brushes I use are for watercolor painting. I have many different types. And just getting my paint ready, everything prepared. I'm going to start with this blue. Gonna add white. There's always lots of white being used for gouache painting. A little bit of, I think it's ochre, and just mixing up. The reason I'm adding ochre is just to make that blue less vibrant, just a little bit more subtle. And mix it. Sometimes I use palette knife, sometimes I use a brush, and just adding a little bit of water. I like using the spritzer bottle because it gives me more control, and I like it to the consistency of a yogurt. So I'm starting with the sky and just going nice and easy. It's very satisfying how opaque the paint is, so all your drawing underneath of your pencil, don't worry, it's going to be covered. And I always prepare my paper, which is watercolor paper, with masking tape, so you have a nice sharp white edges. When you peel that masking tape off, it's the most satisfying moment. I'm trying to use my whole arm, not focusing on the detail, just covering majority of the sky. I'm gonna add happy little clouds. And just brushing gently, just blending it nicely to the sky. So once I have my sketch down, I don't really need to look at my reference picture just from time to time, so it gives you a nice loose effect when you have some of it kind of like the picture, but some of it is fairly loose. And make sure you go over that masking tape, because there's nothing more annoying. There's a tiny little gap where the paint didn't cover. I added all the flat shapes into that picture, and started adding a little bit more detail. Focusing on the foliage. So I want to give it dimension. I'm trying not to fuss about the detail and just covering the basic shapes, moving the colors all around the page. So using the same color in the foreground foliage and a little bit at the back, so the picture will look harmonious and cohesive. It's all about looking the whole image and finding that right balance, moving colors all around the page but without making it too busy. I'm trying to add a little bit of texture into that road so it doesn't look like just a snake. But I have to confess that after I finished that painting, because I'm talking to you from the future, I had a regret. I had a regret that I haven't actually sketched that road properly and I just sketched it like I thought it looked like. So there's definitely my mistake, but I think that was a lesson as well, because now I know that it's worth to invest in a good sketch. And now from looking back, I know what changes I would make. So definitely that very vivid, very bright, like an apple green grass, that would be different if I was drawing that again. But I was trying to make it more like a graphic style. Oh no, the speckle. That happens. And another thing, maybe keeping my water somewhere else so it doesn't just drip over the paper. That was another lesson. So coming back to the grass, I would make it more like a gradient, or maybe darker and less saturated in the back. Forward, in the distance, that's the word I was looking for. And in foreground, that will be much more vibrant, lighter color, and that creates kind of atmospheric illusion. And I like that when I paint with my acrylic painting, but I have not thought about it to do it with gouache, which obviously that would apply as well, because perspective and atmospheric perspective that applies everywhere unless you stylize it to the point where it's kind of featured not having that. I like using the palette knife because if I use my brush, then the paint just goes everywhere and it's very difficult to control the brush. I'm using my palette knife just to add a little bit of texture to it, and I do like making those flowers. The palette knife will give you a bit unexpected bits and bobs on your paper. You can use it to give it a bit more of a scratchy look. I am adding a little bit of green areas just to separate those blossom bits. Now I'm breaking it up with additional color so it doesn't look just like a solid clump of pink. Adding yellow not only within those flowers but all over my canvas. In the distance as well, but in the distance the flowers will be just tiny little speckles, where in the front, closer they are to me or to the viewer, they are much bigger. Now it's time to add details in the background so it just doesn't look like a blob of paint, especially that grass looks very samey. So just adding detail and texture and color, it just hopefully will make it into a nice harmonious piece. I'm using my Caran d'Ache watercolor color pencils just to add a little bit of texture and trying out more like a mixed media approach. Adding a little bit of shadows and darker stems to create more realistic approach. So I think I'm being naturally drawn towards realistic rather than graphic style. And let me just show you that set. It's a beautiful set of watercolor pencils. They are smooth like butter when you join them together, and all you need to do if you want ever kind of watercolor effect, you can use brush and water just to mix them together, or you can just use them dry like a traditional color pencils. And just adding here and there just a tiny bit really does make a difference. So I like that stage when you're just adding tiny little marks, and it really changes your image. This is one of my favorite inking tools, Lamy ink pen, and I love it for mark making and for sketching, for joining this one, watercolors and ink. It gives me beautiful effects, and I do use that for that effect. Here is a little bit different because it doesn't want to really take on, so I'm going to swatch to my brush pen, and this is also a lovely brush pen which does the job. It will definitely work. So because the paint has already created kind of texture on it with the ink pen, it's very difficult to draw, so this one has to take over. And here we are creating the marks with no problem at all. They are quite chunky, but you can change the pressure and the ends will be very tapered and the middle can be a little bit stronger, so it gives you that variety when you press the brush. It is really fun to use this one. I love it. It just glides. And back to my good old trusted microns. These are waterproof, and again, if you use them with watercolors, they work really nicely because they're not going to smudge. If your technique is just to put your line work first and then the paint, so that's gonna be really good for this. And I recently ordered sepia color, which is brown, nice warm tone, because black sometimes seem a little bit too strong, so I much prefer to having that softer brown feel, especially for any kind of nature drawing. That's fantastic. And now I'm going to play with my Sakura gel pen, and I love it for any highlights. It's really handy. You just need to be careful what you order, because I think I ordered a set of few of them and one was completely stopped working and would never get any gel ink out, and those bigger numbers were working fine, so just check them. I think it's a bit too late now to return it, which is a shame, but they're already handy, and also for any kind of watercolor painting, that's great. I even used it for my color penciled work when I was doing some coloring pages and wanted to bring the highlights back. That just did the trick. And with gouache, with white gouache, sometimes it kind of fades. It doesn't give you such a strong white when you paint over paint, and with this gel pen it just stayed as white as like I left it. So I'm just gonna play a little bit more with those color pencils, and I have to say this whole drawing session was about experimenting with different tools and just see how they blend together, how they work. And I have changed my water. It was so dirty, it's just so easy to make a mistake and drink it as a coffee because it wasn't far off the color. I decided to add a little bit more shadow areas in those bushes so they look a little bit more 3D, but I could have left them just as they were fine. And I keep drawing towards, I'm being drawn towards realism more, where I don't know if I'll be able to draw something in completely flat color. I think that will be really challenging for me. Maybe I should do the challenge like that one day. Oops. And a packet of Rebels has arrived to the table, my sweet little secret. And I'm adding even more darker bits and pieces around the flower field, flowers. I just want to tell you a little bit more about this place. This is a place called Butser Hill, and this is the view from the Butser Hill towards Portsmouth. And this is a very special area. It's ancient land. It is very different when you go there to your ordinary meadow or forest. You can feel it's special. So this is the place we love to go with our dogs, and it has a special meaning for us. This summer I have booked a couple of photo shoots to take pictures there. I was photographing there before, and you get amazing views. One part of this Butser Hill area is looking as if something hit it. It's like a massive dip, and there are some videos on my Piccolino's channel, so if you want I can just link it up and you'll find it in the description, the Butser Hill. So what I noticed, I think I like when there is a dose of realism, but there are interesting shapes and interesting marks, lots of texture and color variation. So colors can be different and not real, but I do like putting shadows and kind of areas. I know this picture is not perfect and it's not realistic, but I'm just experimenting, and hopefully it will show me which sort of style I'm being drawn to, because I'm still exploring. I haven't settled for any style for 100%, so it's very much searching all the time. When I see something, I tend to save it into my kind of folder on my computer, just artwork that I really love and I would love to kind of study and learn what can I get from that one, what kind of elements do I like, would I like to include in my work. And sometimes I love when someone else does it in their work, but it's so difficult for me to kind of embrace and stick to it. So it might be a different story when you experiment with your own style, but it's definitely good trying. And making mistakes is a great lesson as well, so don't beat yourself up when you think, oh, I completely messed it up, I made this and this mistake. Just be happy that you discovered it and you can learn from it and you can move on, and your next painting will be better, and another, and you have so many more paintings to paint in your life. So don't worry, it's just a process, it's a lesson, so don't be too hard on yourself. So at this point I thought I would like to experiment with the sky, and I added this pink lilac color just to make it different, because that sky looked quite peaceful comparing to very busy foreground and flowers. So I thought, I have nothing to lose, this is my practice session. But then I kind of panicked and I thought, oh no, I completely ruined this. You can see me going quite nervous with my hands. What do I do? So sometimes the dry paint doesn't let you, well, what's on dry paint will not let you accept any more marks, any more scribbles with a pencil, with color pencils. And it's a good idea just to make a picture without any hang-ups, without any hopes, and just kind of practice. Even if you're just making shapes and you know it's going to go to the bin, just have it as a practice picture so you don't have any stress and any pressure on you that it has to be a certain way when you finish it. So I decided to mellow that sky a little bit and just going over this purple lines with water. And super diluted white, just a tiny bit with lots of water. But you have to be careful when you're adding very watery brush to already dry paint. Just see for yourself what could happen. But I think that doesn't look too bad. Once I added that, I would love to just spend one day, one session, just, or maybe even more than one, just painting the sky and different clouds. I think it's really relaxing and you can learn so much. You can be a little bit more free, because with portraits, for example, you have to be super precise, having a proportion right, otherwise the likeness is not there. So with clouds or any kind of more abstract shape, you can really experiment and have fun, let loose, much better than stressing about it. Very diluted white paint and creating a variety in the sky, and I'm glad I did it because it looked very graphic. I think I prefer a more realistic approach, even if those flowers look completely unreal and just marks from the distance. They might give me impression of flowers, but sky and clouds, I think I like those. And just brighten things up. It is very easy to get carried away with highlights and adding white bits, so just go a little bit and take a step back, think how everything looks in relation to other things. Now the most satisfying bit. So here we are, finished work, you can see. I hope you enjoyed this little paint along, and I would love to see what you created, and I hope you like the rich mark making. I think I like this picture. I just not keen on the road, so maybe next time I will pay more attention to my sketching. And please let me know in comment where you're from. Bye bye, till next time.